Now here are Jordan Moore and John Jackson.
Hello and welcome to Trojans Live for our Cotton Bowl preview special on ESPN LA 710 and Facebook Live. Thanks everyone for coming. We are counting down to USC men's basketball against Princeton. That's why everyone's here. That tips at 8 o'clock. The pregame show will start at 7:40. But first, we've got the head coach here, Clay Helton, to get us primed for a classic matchup between USC and Ohio State in Dallas on December 29. I am Jordan Moore alongside John Jackson and JJ. What was your first thought when you saw Ohio State come up on the television screen? We got an old school Rose Bowl matchup, except we're going to do it in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought about. I thought about it going back to the old days of USC Ohio State. You know, this classic game was played in the Rose Bowl years ago. And I also thought, it felt for Clay, I was like, look, you end up winning the Pac-12 championship and your reward is Ohio State in the bowl game. So you have another game that's just as tough as anyone you played all year.
They wouldn't have it any other way. Big Ten champions against the Pac-12 champions. We're counting down the kickoff with Mito Swiss watches since 1918. The official timekeeper of USC Athletics. Be the first dome to fight on. Limited edition timepiece. True Trojan fans visit shopmito.com/USC. That's shopmito, MIDO.com/USC. All right, let's bring in the coach. What was your reaction, Coach? You're sitting there, found out like the rest of us. What do you think when you saw the Buckeyes lined up with the Trojans?
Oh, pure excitement. I mean, when you come to USC, you want to play on the biggest stages with the brightest lights, and to have an opportunity to play Ohio State, to have the Pac-12 champion against the Big Ten champion in that classic Cotton Bowl matchup. That's what you play the game for. And excited for our players. Our players are ecstatic. They've had 2 really great weeks of practice, and looking forward to going down to Dallas and having the hospitality of a great Cotton Bowl.
You know, anytime these games get played, the Pac-10 against the Pac-12 against the Big Ten, the comparison always becomes style of football. The Big Ten style of football is roll up your sleeves and grind it out, and it's snowing and raining and throw the ball 8 times the entire game. And the Pac-12 is they air it out too much and they're soft. How does those stereotypes fit into this game? I mean, what are you seeing from Ohio State? And we know what the Trojans bring.
Yeah, I think it's different. They're different than your regular Big Ten team, and I think that's one of the ways they separated themselves. Because when you look at the quarterback, when you look at JT, I mean, you're talking about a kid that has thrown for 3,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, has rushed it for 700 yards. They live in 3 wides. They spread you out. They make you cover every inch of the field. So, you know, their dynamic is very similar to what we've seen this season. Now, they have tremendous football players all over, starting with JT. JK's back there. Mike Weber's back there. I mean, they have 3 kids that can rush the ball and 6 wideouts that I think could play for anybody in the country.
Well, you head to Dallas on Saturday. How have the last couple weeks gone? A couple extra weeks to prepare. How has that gone?
No, it's been really good. You know, we've been able to put a full game plan in. We acted last week like we were playing on Saturday, kind of like we did for the Rose Bowl. This is a little bit different dynamic because it's a shortened window with us playing in the Pac-12 championship game this year. So we went right to work in game planning, reviewed that game plan this week, finished it today. We're going to let the kids go home for just a couple days to celebrate Christmas with their parents, and then we report to Dallas on the 23rd.
You know, when you get to this Ohio State team, you talked about some of the strengths already on the offensive side. Defensively, you also mentioned that this is where they really stand out in terms of that defensive front, and not just because of the talent, but because of the depth.
Yeah, the depth is what stands out to you, especially on the defensive front. I think they got 8 kids that do a phenomenal job, and you can see the difference in the first and second down, normal down and distance players, and then their pass rushers that they bring in, like Bosa. Comes in off, and he leads them in sacks. So the depth is what ends up getting you. I think they do a great job of substituting and letting those kids play. You know, they're holding teams to 292 yards a game, which is about as good as anybody out there. So going to be a great challenge for our offense. I know they're looking forward to it.
You know, a couple years ago, you mentioned when you got the job that you wanted to be USC to be more Stanford-like, not necessarily in terms of wins and losses, but in terms of physicality, offensive line play, run the ball at the end of the game, and you've done that. Now, when you look across at this team, and, you know, last year was Penn State and this team, how much do you sort of say, you know what, let me take a couple little nuggets from them in terms of philosophy in that depth being maybe one of them.
Yeah, one of the things that I think we've done a nice job of, especially offensively, is our depth at the skill positions. I mean, I think about our tight ends, Tyler Petit, Daniel Amortabebe, Josh Fallow. You see those guys all making big plays. Look at our wide receiver position. It seems like it's not all Deontay all the time.
Yeah.
We've been able to get some other guys where they can't focus just on him, and the ball has been spread around. So our strength is in our numbers and in our offensive skill. And that next guy up has to not let production fall, whether it's Rojo as a starter and then Stephen Carr, Vi, and Said coming in, is to keep that pressure on defenses. We've done a good job of that throughout the year. Now here's our final exam against a great Ohio State team.
Yeah, it is your final exam, and I know you and every coach will say, it always comes down to, to execution. But I wonder if that's even more so in this case when they look like you a lot. Athletes, speed. I mean, I know there's good athletes and there's fast teams in the Pac-12, but there's 5 stars across the board on both sides now. So it's not like, hey, just let's go out there and make plays because we're better. You're going to have to out-execute this team.
Yeah, that's what we've talked about. There's a bunch of NFL football players that's
on
going to be playing on the 29th on both sides, and it's going to be coming down to playing clean football because when you're playing an Ohio State team, especially offensively, that's scoring 42 points a game, no huddle, 80 play a game offense, you have to be able to ball control. You have to not have penalties, not have turnovers. You have to move the chains, have some 12, 14, 16 play drives that keeps their opportunities down, because when they get a number of opportunities, a lot of them, they're putting points on the board. They're going to score. That they're too good. It's limiting their opportunities throughout the game.
One of the challenges I always find with bowl games is when your team, usually the team playing in the big bowl games, they're the teams that are hot at the end, which you guys are extremely hot. Arguably played one of your best games against Stanford. But how do you hold it for the next 3 or 4 weeks? I mean, the kids have had finals. The kids have to go for Christmas. I mean, all these other things are going on, not to mention practice. How do you hold it? And over the course of the years, what have you found the best way to hold that momentum?
Well, we challenge them right off the get-go, and we're brutally honest with our kids that understand we're getting ready to play a great football team in an arena where we got our butt kicked the last time we were down there. So we need to have our jaw set, and we need to have extreme focus going into that. We started right off in the first week going back to full pads and having a good physical practice, putting in our normal down and distance package, and really keeping them in routine of preparing each and every day like it's a game for Saturday. And the kids' mindset, it's amazing. 18 to 21-year-olds, when you get them in routine, you show them consistency and stability, they just fall right in line. They do a tremendous job, and they have in this week of preparation.
Yeah, and to that end, you mentioned that game obviously last year that started things in AT&T Stadium, so they are comfortable in the environment. But how much more comfortable are they now in big games? Because they're starting to become commonplace again. You have a Rose Bowl last year, a Pac-12 championship game back in the New Year's Six. It just feels like a long time ago that team was a little overhyped coming out of the tunnel at AT&T Stadium.
Yeah, I think they've learned how to win football games, especially in the fourth quarter. That's where I've been most proud of them. When you get we've got 9 bowl-eligible teams in our conference, and you played the likes of Notre Dame and Texas and the Penn States and the Ohio States, and you have to be great in the fourth quarter, and I felt like we did that in the Pac-12 championship game. When it was time to shine, whether it's a 4th and 1 or a 99-yard drive, they find ways to win the big games in the fourth, and that style of finish, I think, is going to be important this week too.
All right, we've got one more segment coming up with the head coach. This holiday season, Chevy invites you to become part of the family with the Chevy employee discount for everyone. You pay what we pay, not a cent more. Visit ChevroletEmployeeDiscount.com for details and learn more at SoCalChevy.com today. Back with more from the head coach, Clay Helton, on Trojans Live.
We go back to the lab with Jordan Moore and John Jackson on Trojans Live.
Back on Trojans Live, Jordan Moore, John Jackson, and the head coach, Clay Helton, brought to you by Cooper Tires, who knows that the four tires in your vehicle are what connect you to the road and help keep you safe. Count on Cooper and visit CooperTires.com today. Well, taking a question here from Facebook Live, Spencer McGale wants to know, with all the injured players, or will all the injured players be ready by the 29th? I would assume that's another bonus of having some weeks off. Some guys probably got healthier.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot healthier, to be honest with you. We had a bunch of bumps and bruises going into that Pac-12 championship game, and to be able to have that next week off for finals as well as getting healthy here, we're in a pretty good spot, I think, all the way around. Obviously, when you're going into as many games as we've played, going into game 14, you're going to have some nicks, but it's probably as healthy as we've been as a football team.
It's recruiting season, so I have to be careful with this question, but I'll try to phrase it the right way. The new signing period, which happens, it's coming up this week, where you can have guys that can sign early, as opposed to the additional signing period, which happens on the normal date in February. This early signing period that you have to deal with, how has that changed the recruiting from a coach's standpoint in terms of going after kids?
It's been very hectic. There hasn't been a lot of sleep, I can promise you that. But no, it's one of those things that the NCAA has brought into play. I think it's been good for those young men that are going to be early enrollees in spring. It's an obvious decision to be able to sign and move on. Where it's been a little bit hectic is those guys that are still May and June graduates, and them trying to decide, okay, am I signing now or in February, and making sure that if they are making their decisions, to be able to get in front of them. So there's been kids that, on both sides, like, I'm done, and there's some, I'm close to deciding. I may sign, I may not. So it's been a little bit different, I think, for everybody. The obvious one is, and the easy ones have been the ones that are going to be the spring enrollees.
The overall perspective is that I think it was brought in to sort of help the kids sort of, know earlier, so to speak, and bring less, confusion later. Do you like it better? I mean, is it better for you to sort of know what you're getting? Because it works both ways, right? The kid knows what he's getting, but also as a school, you know what you're getting.
Well, there were some decisions that had to be made, as a head coach. And I've always believed to commit to our players that are on campus first. And that first week of recruiting, we were preparing for a Pac-12 championship. And like I told our staff, as much as recruiting is very special, but our players on our campus are more special, and we have to commit to them to help winning a championship. And I think every kid is going to be okay with us doing that. Now, that means we're plane, trains, and automobiles the next week and a half. And that's the way it is, and we're all going to be tired, but that's the nature of the game. And but so it's been a little bit hectic. I don't know if the NCAA will stick with this model. I think it makes a lot of sense with the guys that are graduating in the fall and coming in the spring. I think it has thrown a little bit of a curveball for those May and June graduates.
Well, for those watching and listening, you hopefully will hear some announcements tomorrow. Just follow USC_athletics on Twitter and Instagram, and anything that comes out, we'll be the first ones to tell it to you. Other news that sort of has come since the last time we talked to you, your brother, obviously, Tyson Helton, takes a big job. He gets a great opportunity at Tennessee. First and foremost, your thoughts on that, but also how it affects you guys in your preparation.
Yeah, definitely. The one thing great about SC is the quality of coaches that you're able to bring in, and you always know that they're going to stay around as long as they can until that next step comes up. The assistant coach goes to coordinator, a coordinator goes to head coach. And as a head coach, that's what you want for your guys. You want them to be able to take the next step forward for their career and their family. So proud of the job that Tyson did while he was here. He helped us to a Rose Bowl. He helped us win a Pac-12 championship. Excited for him to take his next step in his career. For us, we're fortunate. We had the opportunity to hire Brian Ellis last year, who's a Jeff Brom disciple, to come on and be a quality control with us. Has been a full-time coach at other universities, and to be able to and has played the quarterback position. That's his natural trade, and to be able to just put him in while we're going through the bowl game here has been a very smooth and easy transition for us.
Just take us a little bit inside the conversation between when your brother has the job and he comes and says, "Hey, bro, I'm out." What's the conversation between you two, and the decision for him to leave early as opposed to staying? I know he wanted to leave early to get a jump on recruiting and all the other things that you're doing now. But how did that conversation or decision come about?
It's twofold. You have to look at it from a head coaching standpoint and from a brother standpoint. As a brother, I was extremely happy for him to move forward. And as a head coach, you're sad because you had a really quality coach that our kids had a great relationship with. He had done a lot for our staff. And to see him go, that doesn't make you happy.
Yeah.
But I'm happy for him as a brother and to see him move on and you know, we'll still. I don't know how much. Usually, when you go off and you're someplace else, you don't see each other very often. So,
right.
I'll go back to not seeing them very much.
Catch him on the trail somewhere.
Yes.
I wanted to get another fan question in. They've been watching us all season long on Trojans Live, and we really appreciate it. Scott Kerfoot, he's clearly been watching film, Coach. He's worried. How are you going to establish the run against a huge defensive line? Maybe Scott knows.
Very, very good.
If
very
he knows
good.
that, he can get a job on the staff.
Yeah,
Wants to be the quarterback's coach.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, not to give an entire game plan away, but I think one of the things that you see from this defense, you're going to see a lot of zone pressures. And the teams that have struggled against the movement of the zone pressures have not looked very good, to be honest with you. So that's our primary concern is when they bring those field zone pressures, cross-dog pressures inside, boundary pressures from corner or safety, that we identify them and we know exactly what to do. So I'm very much thank goodness that we've had a couple extra weeks because they throw some curveballs at you and some challenges scheme-wise.
Yeah, and I think more than anything, the question is how important is it too? Because as you've really hit this nice run since the Notre Dame game, Ronald happens to be over 100 yards every single game, and you really are playing the best offense that you played all season.
Yeah, it's, as I know I always use the term balance, but it's extremely important to be able to take the pressure off a quarterback and wideouts when you can lean on a running game, especially finishing games, to be able to lean on that running game. So we're not changing. We're going into game 14. We are what we are. Our kids believe in it. Our coaches believe in it, and we'll move forward and do what we do.
All right, well, we appreciate it. We thank you for joining us. We know you're in the middle of a busy period, and you're always in a busy period. That's the life of the head coach here at USC, but we thank you as always. Coach, big hand for the AP Pac-12 Coach of the Year, Clay Helton. Back with more on Trojans Live.